Imagine the sting of being turned away by those who should have embraced you. The ones whose arms should have been open became walls that shut you out. Family, the place where love was supposed to be unconditional, turned into the place of your deepest rejection. They doubted you, dismissed your worth, and made you feel like an outsider in your own home. Their words pierced deeper than any stranger's insult, because they came from the mouths of those you trusted most. Rejection is not merely the absence of acceptance. It is the presence of a wound that whispers, "You are not enough." And when that wound is inflicted by family, it feels almost unbearable. Many nights, you have replayed their words in your mind, wondering why you were the one singled out, why you were the one left behind, why your love was not enough to bind their hearts to yours. But let me tell you something that heaven is already writing into your story. Your rejection was never the end. God has been quietly arranging something extraordinary in the unseen. He is preparing a table for you. A table not in the hidden shadows, but right in front of the family who turned their backs on you. What they thought was your burial place is about to become your stage of victory. What they thought was your ruin is being transformed into your rise. Do you see how God works? He does not simply heal the wound in private. He displays His glory in public. The same people who mocked you, who said you would never make it, who whispered behind closed doors that you were the failure of the family, these are the very eyes God will cause to watch as He lifts you. He does not prepare the table in secret, for His purpose is not only to bless you, but to reveal His justice and faithfulness in the sight of those who deny you. This is not about revenge. It is about restoration. God is not feeding your ego. He is feeding your destiny. The table He is setting is not decorated with pride, but with grace. It is a banquet of peace, abundance, and divine favor that speaks louder than any rejection ever could. It is the fulfillment of His promise that no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rose up in judgment shall be silenced. Ask yourself, what if the rejection you endured was actually God's redirection? What if He allowed their distance so that He could show you His closeness? What if the family's closed doors were only making room for God's open windows? Perhaps you were never meant to fit into their mold because you were being shaped for a calling far greater than their understanding. Consider Joseph, cast aside by his brothers, left for dead and sold into slavery. His greatest betrayal came from family. Yet, when God's plan unfolded, Joseph did not just rise. He was lifted into a place where his brothers had to come and bow before him. Not because he sought revenge, but because God turned rejection into recognition, betrayal into breakthrough, and pain into purpose. So too with you. God is writing a Joseph-like story in your life. The very ones who thought you had no future will one day watch as you walk into the fullness of your calling. They will see the table set, the cup overflowing, the goodness and mercy following you, and they will know it was God who did it. Pause for a moment and let this sink in. Your rejection has not gone unnoticed. Your tears have not been wasted. Heaven has recorded every sleepless night, every prayer whispered through trembling lips, every sigh that rose from your weary soul. And heaven has answered. God is not just preparing a blessing, He is preparing a testimony, one that requires an audience. Now the question is, will you trust Him long enough to let the table be set? Will you resist the urge to prove yourself in your own strength, and instead allow God to display His glory in His time? For the table is not ready until God Himself places the final piece. And when He does, there will be no denying His hand upon your life. Because in the end, rejection cannot define you. God's acceptance does. Family may have turned away, but your Father in heaven has turned toward you. And when God prepares a table, no rejection, no betrayal, no cruel word can stop you from sitting in the place He has designed. There is a great danger in allowing rejection to become the lens through which you see yourself. When family, those closest to you, dismiss your worth, their voices can echo so loudly in your heart that you begin to mistake their opinion for truth. You replay their words, you rehearse their criticisms, and slowly you begin to believe the lie. I am unwanted, I am unworthy, I am unloved. But pause for a moment. Do you really think that the Creator of the heavens and the earth would define you by the careless words of fragile people? Do you truly believe that the Author of life, who knit you together in your mother's womb, would allow your value to be determined by human rejection? No. Your worth has always been secured in the One who made you, not in those who rejected you. Rejection, in fact, is often the stage upon which God writes His greatest stories. Consider the lives of those who came before you. Joseph was rejected by his brothers, yet he became the second most powerful man in Egypt. David was rejected even by his own family. When Samuel came to anoint a king, he wasn't even invited into the room. Yet that same David was chosen by God to defeat Goliath and to rule a nation. Even Jesus, the cornerstone of our faith, was rejected in his own hometown. They called him ordinary, dismissed him as the carpenter's son. And yet, through him, salvation came to the world. Do you see the pattern? Rejection by man often becomes the confirmation of divine selection. The family that shut you out was not the final authority over your destiny. In their rejection, God was carving out space for His redirection. He was moving you away from the shadows of their limited vision into the broad horizon of His eternal plan. Think of rejection like a gardener pruning a tree. At first glance, the cutting away seems cruel, unnecessary, even damaging. But the gardener knows that, without the pruning, the tree will never bear the fruit it was destined to carry. The branches removed are not wasted. They are simply cleared so that new life can flourish. Likewise, the family's rejection was a pruning. Painful, yes. Yes, unjust, absolutely. But necessary? In the hands of God, yes, for He was preparing you to bear fruit that they could not even imagine. And here is the truth that you must cling to. Rejection does not diminish your worth, it magnifies God's presence. Every tear you shed because of their coldness is seen by Him. Every lonely night is recorded. And in heaven's record, your rejection has been marked not as defeat, but as preparation. Preparation for the day when the table is set, and the very people who doubted you will be forced to witness the feast of favor God lays before you. So do not wear rejection like a cloak. Do not let it define your steps or cloud your vision. Instead, see it as a divine marker, an indication that you are being positioned for something greater than their acceptance could ever have provided. Their rejection is temporary, but God's preparation is eternal. When you're tempted to rehearse their words in your mind, replace them with God's words. You are chosen. You are beloved. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Let His voice drown out the noise of rejection, for only His voice has the power to define you. And when the table is prepared, you will understand. The rejection that once broke your heart was never a verdict against you. It was God set up to show His glory in you. When we hear the phrase, God is preparing a table, we often imagine blessings in the quiet of our personal lives, answered prayers, financial provision, open doors. And yes, those things are true. But the image of a table set before your enemies, or, in this case, the family who rejected you, is not just about private provision. It is about public vindication. Vindication is a word that carries weight. It means to be proven right after being misunderstood, to be lifted up after being pushed down, to be honored in the same space where you were once shamed. And that is exactly what God does when He sets a table for you in front of those who turn their backs. Think of how profound this is. God could easily bless you in silence. He could pour favor upon your life behind the scenes where no one notices. But He chooses to prepare the table in the presence of those who once doubted you. Why? Because He wants them to see that their rejection did not stop His plan. He wants them to witness that no amount of cruelty or dismissal could block His purpose for your life. This table is not one of arrogance, but of revelation. It is not about you boasting in yourself. It is about God displaying His faithfulness. The family who whispered that you would never make it will see the goodness of God spread before you like a banquet. The ones who overlooked you will be unable to ignore what God has done, not because you demanded their recognition, but because God Himself made your life a testimony they cannot deny. Picture this: a banquet hall filled with light, a table adorned with abundance, and your name written on the seat at the head. The same family who once shut you out must now watch as God calls you forward, as He fills your cup until it overflows, as He dresses you not in shame but in honor. And when they see it, they will have no choice but to say, "This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes." This is why you must not rush the process. God does not set the table hastily. He takes His time arranging each detail, ensuring that when the moment comes it will be undeniable. Every plate of favor, every cup of blessing, every dish of opportunity is placed not merely for your satisfaction, but for His glory. And the timing is precise, not too soon, not too late, but exactly when the impact will be greatest. Think again of Joseph. His table was set in the palace, and his brothers, the very ones who betrayed him, were forced to come and bow before him. Did Joseph gloat? No. But did God vindicate him? Absolutely. The table God prepared was not just food for Joseph. It was a visible declaration that His hand had been on Joseph all along. Your story will be no different. God is not preparing blessings merely for your survival. He is preparing them for your vindication. Every moment of rejection is being turned into a testimony. Every cruel word spoken against you will be silenced by the evidence of God's favor. So when you feel overlooked, remind yourself, my table is being prepared. When you feel mocked, whisper to your soul, my table is almost ready. When you are tempted to despair, remember, the table is not just food, it is vindication. And when the day comes, you will sit at that table in peace, not needing to prove yourself, not needing to explain your worth, because God Himself will have spoken louder than their rejection. It is a strange paradox of life, that the very places where we feel most abandoned can become the very places where God reveals Himself most clearly. When family rejects you, they leave a void in your heart, a space that once longed for their affirmation, their embrace, their love. At first, this void feels like death itself. It feels like loss beyond repair. But here lies the mystery. God often waits for those spaces to be emptied of human approval before He fills them with His presence. Rejection, though painful, is not an empty hole. It is an open space. And open spaces are where God builds sanctuaries. the absence of their acceptance creates room for the fullness of his acceptance. The silence of their love makes way for the thunder of his love. The distance of their arms draws you nearer to his everlasting arms. Consider the story of Hannah in the Scriptures. Mocked and ridiculed by her rival, misunderstood even by the priest, and barren in the eyes of her family, she carried a void so heavy it brought her to tears before the Lord. But it was in that place of emptiness that God met her and gave her a son, Samuel, who would go on to be one of Israel's greatest prophets. Her rejection created the very space that God filled with destiny. The same is true for you. The family who turned their backs did not leave you with nothing. They left you with a space that only God could fill. They vacated their role, but in doing so they opened a door for God to step in and occupy it in a way no human ever could. Their rejection pushed you deeper into his presence, and there you will find a love that cannot be shaken, a peace that cannot be broken, a favor that cannot be denied. Think of it this way. If your family had always embraced you, perhaps you would have been satisfied with their approval. Perhaps you would have mistaken their acceptance for the ultimate measure of your worth. But because they rejected you, you were forced to seek a higher approval. And in seeking it, you found not just acceptance but divine adoption. You discovered that you are a child of God, loved not for what you do but for who you are in him. Rejection becomes then a holy invitation. It says, "Come closer. There is a place at my table for you." And when you accept that invitation, you find that the space they left vacant is now filled with something infinitely greater. Their absence prepared the ground for his presence. Their silence prepared your ears to hear his whisper. Their coldness prepared your heart to feel the warmth of his spirit. This is why you must not despise rejection. Painful though it is a gift wrapped in thorns. It is the preparation of the soil for a greater harvest. It is the emptying of the vessel so that it can be filled with something purer, stronger, eternal. So when you remember the sting of their rejection, do not see it as the end of your story. See it as the clearing of a space. And into that space watch how God pours himself, his love, his favor, his blessing, until you no longer ache for their approval because his presence has satisfied you more deeply than their acceptance ever could. And when the table is finally set before them, they will not only see your blessings, they will see the unmistakable glow of his presence upon you. For rejection did not leave you empty, it left you open. And God has filled that openness with himself. One of the hardest lessons to accept when you've been rejected by family is the waiting. You want the vindication to come quickly. You long for the moment when those who pushed you aside will see how wrong they were. You imagine the day when God's blessings overflow in front of their very eyes. But here is the truth. God does not rush the setting of his table. He prepares it in his timing, not yours. Why is this important? Because a hastily set table is never as glorious as a carefully prepared one. Think of a banquet. The host does not throw dishes together in a moment of anger or haste. Instead, every detail is considered. The plates, the cups, the arrangement, the lighting. Each element is chosen with care to create a feast that reflects abundance and beauty. So it is with God. He is not interested in a quick display of blessing. He is crafting a scene of glory that will leave no doubt in anyone's heart that it was his hand at work. This means you must be willing to endure the season of waiting. While your family dismisses you, while whispers of doubt surround you, while your heart aches for vindication, you must trust that heaven's kitchen is busy. The silence does not mean God has forgotten. It means he is still arranging the feast. The delay is not denial, it is preparation. Consider the story of Sarah and Abraham. They waited decades for the promise of a child. In their waiting, they experienced doubt, ridicule, even their own moments of disbelief. Yet when Isaac finally came, it was not just a child being born. It was the fulfillment of a promise in a way that made it undeniably God's doing. The timing was so impossible in human terms that no one could credit it to anything but the hand of the Almighty. The same is true for you. If God allowed your vindication too soon, your family might chalk it up to luck, to your effort, or to coincidence. But when He waits until the moment is impossible, until your strength has run out, until all other explanations are gone, then the blessing will shine with a brilliance that cannot be mistaken. They will know this was not you. This was God. And waiting does something profound within you. It shapes your character, deepens your faith, and teaches you reliance not on the approval of man, but on the timing of God. If vindication came instantly, pride might creep in. But in the waiting, humility is formed. In the waiting, your roots grow deep, and when the table is finally set, you will be able to sit at it with grace rather than arrogance, with peace rather than bitterness. Think of the caterpillar in the cocoon. From the outside it looks as though nothing is happening, as though the creature is trapped, wasting time in stillness. But within the darkness, transformation is underway. And when the time is right, the butterfly emerges, not a moment sooner, not a moment later. So too with you. The waiting season is not wasted. It is where God is transforming you for the banquet to come. So do not grow weary if the table has not yet been set. Do not despair if vindication seems delayed. Trust that God is still working, still arranging, still preparing. His timing is perfect, and when the moment arrives, it will be far greater than anything you imagined. When the feast is ready, your family will not just see food on a table. They will see the evidence of a God who works in silence, who perfects in waiting, and who always reveals His glory in the fullness of time. When rejection pierces the heart, the natural impulse is to respond in anger, to fight back, to demand recognition from those who deny you. But here lies a holy truth. The way you respond in the season of rejection determines the glory of the table God prepares for you. You see, rejection can either harden you or refine you. It can turn your heart bitter, or it can turn your heart toward God. If you allow bitterness to take root, you may find yourself carrying the very poison your family injected into you. You begin to mirror the same cruelty, the same coldness, the same sharpness of words that once wounded you. But if you surrender the pain to God, if you allow Him to use rejection as fire that burns away pride and self-dependence, then you emerge not hardened, but purified. And it is the purified heart that God delights to seat at His table. Consider Joseph once more. When his brothers came to him in Egypt, the very brothers who had sold him into slavery, he held in his hands the power to crush them. He could have imprisoned them, starved them, or turned them away, but instead he wept. Instead he forgave. Instead he said, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." That is why Joseph's table was not just a table of food. It was a table of glory. It reflected not his vengeance, but God's redemption. Your family's rejection is the same test. Will you allow it to make you small, or will you allow it to expand your soul? Will you use their cruelty as fuel for bitterness, or as fuel for forgiveness? The choice is yours, and the choice shapes the banquet that God prepares. Remember this: God does not vindicate those who carry hatred in their hearts. His glory cannot be displayed on a table set with revenge. The feast He prepares is decorated with grace, forgiveness, and humility. It is not a table where you rise and gloat over those who hurt you, but a table where you rise and demonstrate that their cruelty did not define you. Your response proves that you are greater than their rejection, because God's Spirit lives within you. Think of gold refined in fire. The flame does not destroy the gold, it burns away the impurities. The hotter the fire, the purer the gold. So too with rejection. The deeper the wound, the greater the opportunity for refinement. If you let God have His way in your heart, the rejection will not leave you weaker, it will leave you radiant. And when you finally sit at the table, you will shine not because of what they did to you, but because of how God shaped you through it. This is why your response matters so deeply. Each tear you surrender to God becomes oil He uses to anoint your head. Each moment of silence instead of retaliation becomes strength in your soul. Each prayer of forgiveness becomes a seed that blossoms into peace. By the time the table is set, you will not sit in anger, you will sit in joy. And your family will see it. They will expect bitterness, but they will find peace. They will expect anger, but they will see grace. They will expect you to treat them as they treated you, but instead they will witness something divine, something they cannot explain. That is the glory of your table. It is not just the food upon it, it is the heart with which you sit at it. So guard your heart in the season of rejection. Do not let their rejection shape you. Let God's love shape you. For when you respond with grace, you prepare yourself not only to sit at the table, but to radiate the glory of the one who set it for you. Rejection by family often carries with it the heaviest weight, because it whispers to your soul, if they don't believe in you, then who will? These are the people who know your beginnings, who have watched your struggles, who should have celebrated your growth. When they reject you, it feels like the foundation beneath you has crumbled. Their disapproval can trick you into believing your destiny has been cut short. But hear this truth. Your family does not write your story. They do not hold the pen of your future. They cannot close doors that God Himself has opened. The table He prepares is a declaration that He alone holds the authority over your life. Think of David, overlooked by his father Jesse when Samuel came to anoint the next king of Israel. Jesse presented all his other sons, but left David out in the field, as though he could not possibly be the chosen one. Family rejection could not have been clearer. His own father dismissed him as unworthy of consideration. Yet God whispered to Samuel, "Do not look at outward appearance, for the Lord looks at the heart." David was called in, and before the eyes of his brothers and father, anointed as king. The table was set, and God made it plain. Destiny is not determined by family opinion, but by divine election. The same is true for you. Your family's rejection is not the end of your destiny. It is the stage for God to reveal that He alone is the author. Their disapproval, their harsh words, their doubts cannot erase the calling that heaven has placed upon you. When God prepares a table in front of them, it is not only a blessing for you, it is a proclamation to them. You do not define my child. I do. The beauty of this truth is that it frees you from the chains of their opinion. Too often we spend our lives striving for the approval of family, bending ourselves into shapes that are unnatural just to earn their validation. But when God shows Himself as the one who holds your destiny, you are released from that endless striving. You no longer need their applause because you already have His anointing. This is why the table is so powerful. It is not about proving yourself. It is about God proving Himself. He is saying to your family, "You thought you had the authority to dismiss them, but I have chosen them. You thought you could silence them, but I have given them a voice. You thought you could hold them back, but I am the one who lifts them up. And when you sit at that table, you will see that God's plan was never dependent on their acceptance. If it were, you would have been bound forever. But because your destiny rests in His hands, you are free, free to rise, free to flourish, free to walk boldly into the purpose He created for you. Think of the potter shaping clay. The clay does not decide its form, nor do the onlookers watching the potter's work. Only the potter knows the design. Your family may have looked at you and seen nothing but a lump of clay, but the potter saw a vessel of honor, and now he is shaping you, preparing to place you on display at his table, so all will see the work of his hands. So release the need to convince them. Release the weight of trying to prove your worth. Your destiny is not in their hands. It is in God's. And the table He is preparing will be the undeniable evidence of that truth. When God prepares a table for you in front of those who rejected you, it is not only about your blessing, it is about His justice. For too long their rejection has weighed heavily upon your heart, making you question your value, leaving scars of silence and wounds of neglect. But the God you serve is not blind to injustice. He is not indifferent to your pain. He is the God who keeps careful records of tears, and He has promised that He will repay. The table, then, is more than abundance. It is a courtroom. It is God's way of declaring before heaven and earth, "This child is mine, and I will not allow their rejection to have the final word." The family who mocked, excluded, or belittled you will be forced to watch as He overturns their verdict. Where they condemned, He justifies. Where they pushed you down, He raises you up. Where they dismissed you, He declares you chosen. Yet here lies a divine mystery. The table is not only a place of justice, it is also a place of mercy. For even as your family witnesses your blessing, they are also being given a chance to see God's goodness, to repent of their cruelty, and to recognize His hand upon your life. The very people who cast you aside are now faced with a display of grace they do not deserve. They may not repent, but God, in His mercy, still extends the invitation. This dual nature of justice and mercy is what makes God's table unlike any other. If it were only justice, you might sit in bitterness, satisfied only with their humiliation. If it were only mercy, you might still feel the weight of their rejection unanswered. But God holds both in perfect balance. He vindicates you while also extending grace to them, proving that His ways are higher than our ways. Think of Job, stripped of everything, mocked even by those closest to him. His friends offered words of accusation instead of comfort, and his family turned away in shame. Yet when God restored him, He gave Job double for his trouble. His story did not end in ashes, but in abundance, and in the restoration, those who had accused him were silenced by the undeniable evidence of God's hand. The table prepared for Job was both justice, restoring what was lost, and mercy, revealing that even his accusers could not escape the truth of God's sovereignty. The same will be true for you. Your rejection is not the closing chapter. It is the setup for God's justice to be displayed. The table will become your testimony, not just to your family, but to all who witness your story. It will say, God is faithful, God is just, God is merciful. And here is the beauty. You do not need to orchestrate this justice yourself. You do not need to craft elaborate speeches to prove them wrong. You do not need to retaliate with words or deeds. God Himself is your defender, and the table He sets will speak louder than any argument you could ever make. So wait patiently. Let Him prepare it. Let Him arrange it with the precision of divine justice and the tenderness of divine mercy. When the time comes, the family who rejected you will see not only your blessing, but the heart of a God who makes all things right. And in that moment you will understand that the table was never only about food. It was about vindication, restoration, and the revelation of God's unshakable justice and mercy. So here we stand at the edge of a mystery that is no mystery at all to God. You, the rejected one. You, the forgotten one. You, the one who was overlooked at the table of your own family. What they thought was the end of your story was only the beginning of his. For in the silence of your pain, God was building something greater than their acceptance could have ever given you. The table is being prepared, not in secret, not in the shadows, but in plain view of those who dismissed you. And when it is set, it will not only feed your soul with abundance, it will declare to the world that the author of your life has the final word. Their rejection did not break you, it positioned you. Their cruelty did not define you, it refined you. Their silence did not erase you, it gave God space to speak louder than they ever could. And when you take your seat at that table, you will not sit with bitterness, but with peace. You will not sit with arrogance, but with humility. You will not gloat, for this table was never about revenge. It was always about revelation. It was about the world seeing that God is faithful, that he is just, that he is merciful. So lift your head, child of God. Do not let rejection weigh upon you like chains. You are not bound by their words, their doubts, or their silence. You are bound only by the love of the one who calls you his own. And his love is preparing for you a banquet that no rejection can cancel, no betrayal can diminish, no bitterness can destroy. The family who once turned their backs will see it. The ones who mocked will watch in silence. The ones who doubted will be forced to reckon with undeniable truth that you are chosen, you are loved, you are lifted, not by their approval, but by God's hand alone. And when the day comes, you'll sit at the table he has set before you, not only as one who was rejected, but as one who was restored, vindicated, and crowned with his favor. This is the hope, this is the promise, this is the banquet of God.